Welcome everybody to Mark Rogers Postgame Live here on the Miami YouTube channel. Canes picked up a big win tonight, 48-33 over the Aggies. First things first, prayers up to Cam Kinchens, who took that. Well, he didn't take the hit, but he had a scary injury. Everything that I've seen so far from James Williams and MarkRogersTV saying he's all right, he's all good, and they expect everything to be okay. So, that's good news for us as Canes fans and for Cam himself with his health. But yeah, despite the final score being 48-33, we looked absolutely dominant in this game if it weren't for some special teams blunders. So yeah, any thoughts, Slim?
The first thing that's going to come to my mind after this win is, Miami teams of the past 5, 6, 7 years making those kind of first quarter mistakes would have packed it in.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows me something that they didn't. Like you said, with the special teams blunders and then the penalties too. That's something this team needs to get cleaned up still, is the penalties. Listen, Texas A&M had that. I know Miami went into halftime with a lead. Texas A&M may not have scored if Miami was playing more disciplined football.
Yep. I mean, I was sitting next to a Texas A&M game, and he's like, "Hey, man, thanks for the 14 points. This would be a drubbing right now." Because
that final score could be better.
It could honestly be like 48-16.
Yeah.
Something like that. 48-20. But, it was so refreshing to see, and even TVD said it, where last year they would have quit. They would have just packed it in and they just would have walked away. And it just showed something about this team that they were able to put these mistakes and these errors behind them and rally together and not just win. But like I said, the final score is misleading. We dominated them. It was genuinely like domination. Like we pushed them around, and pre-game, I had 3 keys to this victory, and it was TVD needed to show up, which he did. I have the stats here. He threw for 374 yards, went 21 of 30, and threw 5 touchdowns. And he wasn't dinking and dunking. It was taking deep shots.
No, he took what the defense gave him.
Yes. And to all the people saying he only looks for Restrepo. Yeah, Restrepo got some targets, but guess what? Restrepo was our leading receiver with 6 catches and 126 yards. So if he wants to keep looking for Restrepo, it's for a reason. It's because he's good and he gets open. And Restrepo, every time he gets the ball, he'll catch a pass for 7 yards and it turns into a 23-yard gain because he just keeps fighting for that extra yardage.
Young as well.
Yes, Colby Young as well. It was nice to see. And there was generally some points where it looked like Texas A&M was kind of just like giving up a little bit, like on the Isaiah Horton touchdown. Their safety could have made a play and maybe like hustled a little bit and pushed them out of bounds. And that's just what it was. Like what we've been talking about, what Mario's been talking about, where it's the little things making the difference, that extra effort that we put in, the mental fortitude that we had. Because, I mean, if I told you, Slim, before this game, it's like, hey, we're going to get blown up at the 10-yard line with the first kickoff, go 3 and out, punt the ball, but it gets blocked, and Texas A&M gets it at the 15. How do you think that game would go?
Differently than it did. And listen, I even expected this game to go differently than it did. I was on another show yesterday, and my thoughts going into this game were Miami's run defense needs to show up, and Miami needs to effectively run the ball and keep A&M's offense off the field.
Which, I mean, our run defense, I'm trying to look at the stats here. We held them. Let me see how many rushing yards they had. They did not run the ball well at all. They had, which neither did we. Honestly, we only had 77 rushing yards. They had 97. But we held them to 3.3 yards per carry, which, I'll take. And the biggest thing is we forced turnovers. We only had one turnover, which was the muff punt by Jacoby George, which immediately Mario corrected that and put X out there on punt return. And then A&M threw 2 picks by Connor Wegman, which, hey, I kind of had a feeling where, like, the whole talk all week had been Connor Wegman has never thrown a college interception. He's never thrown a college interception. And he threw 2 today. And granted, one was in garbage time, but the other one wasn't. And then we also had the fumble, which, can I just talk about Jaden Davis for a second? We have found our cornerback 1. He was great today. He forced a fumble. He was great in coverage. And that was another one of my keys where how much pressure can we get on Connor Wegman, and how do these corners hold up against those A&M receivers?
Yeah, that was something I worried about going into this game, because something Bobby Petrino is very, very good at is finding mismatches on the field. And he actually did a couple of times when you had some linebackers lined up on some slot receivers, and they took advantage of it a couple of times. Yeah. But I was really worried about their passing game going into this game, because that is an elite talent level room full of wide receivers. And that's a guy that's a guy in Bobby Petrino that knows how to find mismatches and knows how to get guys open.
Yeah, and he did, but it kind of did come a little bit too late. Like Evan Stewart, he had 11 receptions for 142 yards, but a lot of those catches were pretty much when the game was kind of over already.
Yeah, they were just having them try and dig themselves out of the hole they put themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the coverage and defense we were running near the end of that game, we were just kind of like back deep, and it's just, okay, keep everything in front of you. Like if they can pick up, like Evan Stewart had like 3 catches on that final drive with like 2 minutes left, and it's like, it looks good on the stat sheet, but overall it wasn't like a huge impact. And Connor Wegman, if you look at the stat sheet, 31 of 53, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, yeah, it looks good, but again, like a lot of this came in garbage time, and this score just very much looks a lot more favorable than it really is.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And listen, it doesn't have to be Texas A&M. It could be insert your team here. I mean, you saw it with Florida a couple of weeks ago. When you're having to throw the ball 50 times, sure, you can pad some stats and look good, but your team is not in a good position overall.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was like Graham Mertz. He threw for like 300 yards, but he had a QBR of like 27 or something. Like it wasn't a good game. It just, like, if you just look at the basic stat sheet, it looks good, but it wasn't an actual like good game. And we had some starters on the defensive line go out. Like Akeem Mesidor didn't check back in. Nigel Kelly was out for the second half, and we still maintained that constant pressure. Which, can we just talk about these coordinators for a second? I mean, it is so refreshing to see a Lance Guidry with how he was calling the defense and how he was able to hold this Texas A&M offense, and then Shannon Dawson calling the perfect plays at the perfect time, like the Jacoby George touchdown at the goal line. That was a beautiful play call, and nothing we would have seen last year. I mean, Josh Gaddis probably would have just run it 3 times up the middle and then a little fade route that would go out of bounds on 4th down or something like that. Like it's just so refreshing to see that we have some actual legit coordinators this year.
Well, and as much praise is getting heaped on the coordinators, just as much should be heaped on Tyler Van Dyke, because Dawson says it all the time in press conferences and interviews he gives in. The offenses he runs are full of options for the quarterback. Tyler Van Dyke has a lot of free reign in this offense.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Van Dyke checks out plays a lot in this offense, and he has, I mean, they've been open about that. It's on him to do so depending on what he sees.
Yeah, I mean, it's very evident that he's a coach with no ego. And we saw it last week where he said he took off a bunch of plays that he knew he wasn't going to run against Miami, Ohio, because they weren't going to work. Like, he checks his ego at the door, and he knows, hey, I have a guy who's uber talented and was a Heisman candidate last year, at the beginning of the year at least. the ball's going to be in his hands. He's the one on the field. I can call the plays, but he's going to be the one out there seeing what the defense gives him. And it's just nice that he's given the liberty to sort of run the game how he wants. And it showed because TVD threw for almost 400 yards.
Yeah.
On a good SEC secondary.
If I'm not mistaken, this was a career game for him. Career high in touchdowns, I know.
I mean, the stat came out where it's
career high edge and yardage too.
No, the career high was North Carolina last year, but it's definitely much more impressive to do it against a Texas A&M than a North Carolina, especially after everything people were saying about him in the off season, that he wasn't actually that good and he was just like a 6-game wonder. And I bet it feels nice to him to finally have shut those people up.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, listen, a lot of people that say that probably have no clue what they're looking at. Anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together and a functional set of eyeballs could see that the majority of TVD's problems last season came from that offensive line, and all credit goes to Mario Cristobal. That offensive line's done a 180.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we were hearing all week that D-line's full of 5 stars and 4 stars. You got Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, all these guys on there, and we bullied them. We just pushed them around.
Oh, and you were listing off people that didn't – I don't think Dean came back in the game either.
Who?
Dean.
Oh, yeah, Dean was – yeah, man. Like, we were missing people off our defensive line, and we were still able to get consistent pressure because it's not like a Manny where Manny's defense was super predictable with the blitzes. It always seemed like Lance Guidry knew the perfect time to dial up a blitz and dial up that little bit of extra pressure that was needed to make Wegman uncomfortable. And, like it got us the win. Like, sure, we put up 48 points, but this game could have easily turned into a shootout with all the talent Texas A&M has on that offense.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, it was just, besides the special teams, it was just an overall team win. I mean, even with the special teams, we returned a kickoff for a touchdown.
Yeah, so to me that kind of washes out in the end. Okay, you muffed one, but you ended up housing one. So
yeah, I mean, like, we gave up 7 points because of the muff. Well, special teams got us those 7 points back, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but there's still obviously one thing I'm not ready to hear is all these pundits all of a sudden probably being like, oh, is the U back and all that stuff. It's not. This is still a team and a program in need of a lot of work, but it's refreshing to see after how last year went that we have taken an absolute step in the right direction. And, there's a couple games. I had us losing this game preseason. I had us losing to Clemson. We won this game. Clemson looks like it could be a win, realistically. I mean, they struggled in the first half with Charleston Southern and then laid an egg against Duke last week. So, if you had this team at 8-4, it's very realistic. It could be a 9-3. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but 10-2 team with the schedule left.
Clemson is just as talented as A&M, and unlike A&M, has proven that they can correct those things. I mean, they've looked bad at other times on this run they've been in, and they've corrected them. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm not already automatically chalking it up as a win, but it's much more of a possibility. I mean, if you talk to anyone preseason and you were like, Miami versus Clemson, who wins? Even Miami fans would be like, oh, Clemson. We're not winning that game. But now it's a real argument and a real point that you can say, Miami can definitely win that game. It's not a completely unrealistic thing.
Oh, sure. I wouldn't say it's unrealistic at all. I think this team is probably still going to, and you see this all the time with, with teams that are kind of rising up from what they were. They're going to drop a game or two that ends up leaving you scratching your head. That's just kind of part of the process of a team learning how to win again.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was obviously a lot of people called this the biggest game of the season, and hopefully this propels us forward to a new level where this team is fully confident in themselves and just kind of rides this high, sort of how like, I don't know, like in 2017, the Notre Dame game got everyone like hyped and had the team playing at another level.
Well, sure, it did for that game, but then they turned right around and gave us a heart attack again against Virginia.
Oh yeah, sure, that's right. We were down like what, 28-14?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you had to have your medication on standby for that season.
Yeah,
and hopefully this one won't be like it. But I mean, as far as this game goes, you hear it all the time. Lack of information after week one. A lot of people play lower ranked or much lower level competition. So, and the biggest jump you see is from week 1 to week 2. I think this team is more legit than even some of the more optimistic Miami fans.
Yeah, and I was optimistic, but I was still kind of in the middle where it was like 8-4. Like the schedule looks like 8-4, but I think
that's where I was. I was, 8-4 was the ceiling for this team, and I mean, I'm not going to jump up and say that they can do a whole lot better. I mean, listen, Duke played well. Duke won 9 games last year and just upset Clemson. That it's not fluky. Duke is a legit team. This isn't your granddaddy's Duke team. Kind of like Kentucky. Kentucky's the same way in that sense. It's not your granddaddy's Kentucky team either. Duke's not as bad as they were at the tail end of David Cutcliffe.
Yeah.
Now, North Carolina, yeah, we got some fool's gold out of their defense last week against South Carolina.
No, I had people trying to tell me, you see, North Carolina's defense has improved, and I still knew it. I still knew it.
Well, I said their D-line looked improved, but I actually got into a conversation with a North Carolina fan, and I was like, bruh, your secondary is still ass juice.
Yeah, I mean, it's improved, but it was still an awful D-line. Like, there's nowhere to go from up, but up from there. I mean, it's like if it was saying with this team, it's like we're a better team than last year. And it's like, yeah, we were 5-7 and got blown out in like half our games. We better be improved.
Yeah, well, I don't think. And listen, I know this is the internet. And everybody loves to troll. Everybody loves to talk shit. But nobody actually thought Middle Tennessee was a better team than Miami. It's funny to talk about it on the internet, once you lose the game, but those things happen. Last year, in my opinion, was Newton's law in full effect. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, between injuries and offense not working out, like it was just a whole mess last year. But we're off to a way better start this year, automatically, and we got a quick turnaround on Thursday, but luckily it's against Bethune-Cookman, so it's whatever.
Yeah, that and another game we can't take a lot of, but 2 things that I think people should keep in mind from this game, and I'm not trying to detract from a win at all, but in my opinion, you should look at every game and see what you can improve. I need to see more consistency out of the run game. You have to be able to run the ball. I know everybody loves passing the ball. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves the 40-yard bombs. But you have to take what a defense gives you. And if a defense is going to give you the ability to run the ball down their throats. You have to be able to run the ball. Like
we were saying, the good thing with Shannon Dawson is he does take what the defense gives him. Where today, Texas A&M was able to take away the run. I mean, 77 yards, 3 yards a carry. That's what we had for today. But guess what? TVD turns around and throws for 374 yards. Yes. And the vertical passing game was working. So, yes, the run game didn't work today, and we moved away a little bit from it. But it's not just because Shannon Dawson is the air raid guy and he just wants to go vertical all the time. Like, no, in these first 2 games, he has shown that he's willing to adjust and throw the game plan out of the door, so to speak, and switch things up based on what they're giving him.
Yeah, and I think that's something you have to be able to do. And I saw somebody's comment earlier, and it's not the first time I've seen it. that is something that Josh Gaddis was unwilling to do. Josh Gaddis wants to make what he wants to run work no matter what, and that is a problem. Now, listen, I think there's plenty of things you could point to that weren't his fault. There's plenty of things you can point to that were. It is what it is. People need to move on from it. Shannon Dawson, like you said, has shown he doesn't have that ego, and is even willing to call out when he gets a little greedy. He did that in his press conference. What was it, Tuesday, when they did all that?
Yep. Where he was he blamed the TVD pick on himself. He was like, I really wanted to go vertical at one point, and I tried it and it failed. That was on me.
Yeah. But I'm kind of with you, because I jumped into a couple of different chats on YouTube after TVD threw that pick last week, and I mean the fan base was right back to doing what they do a lot. He's trash. He's no good. Pull him out. Put somebody else in. The whole 9 yards. And it's like, I think to your point that, this shows when he has to, he can absolutely do what needs to be done. And in my opinion, has probably cemented himself now as a top 5 quarterback in the nation this year.
I mean, I think it still might be a little bit too early for that, but it's definitely a step back in the right direction to where he was in sort of in like the national view of him. Because if you watched any preview video, read any preview article on Miami this offseason, it's, I don't know about Tyler Van Dyke. He wasn't good last year. Is he overrated? Because of that, I'm going to have Miami going 6-6. I'm going to have Miami going 7-5. And it was kind of frustrating to see from a Miami fan's standpoint, because it was like, having followed the team so closely, it's like we know what the issues were in terms of the offense that was being run, the stubbornness of the offensive coordinator, how bad the offensive line was, the fact that he got injured and barely even played the second half of the season. Because there was a point last year where he kind of started turning it around. He threw for 500 yards against North Carolina. He threw for 350 yards against Virginia Tech. And then he looked like he was going to have a big game against Duke, and his shoulder blows up.
Yeah, he takes that sack against Duke where he fumbled, and he just landed right on that shoulder,
Yeah, so, it's kind of nice to see him sort of just come out here and shut all that up, at least for this week. I mean, you already know what the headlines are going to be. Did Miami actually get a big win, or is Texas A&M once again overrated? Is Texas A&M trash?
Well, you've got some of that. You're going to have some of that no matter what. That's how the game is played. That's how it works. I mean, you're hearing and seeing some of that about LSU already. For the people that don't like Florida State.
Yeah.
LSU was not as good as their preseason ranking. They're an overrated team. That's just part of the game. That's just how that works. That's just how that works.
Yeah, and speaking of like the national media, shout out to all the guys at Game Day and ESPN that basically unanimously picked Texas A&M to win. And Pat McAfee even said they were going to win big. So, maybe shut up about that.
Well, here's the problem with listening to the national media on that, for the most part. Now, outside of the guys that, your Kirk Herbstreets, who basically focus exclusively on college football, a lot of these guys don't just focus on college football. So they're basically giving some notes on both teams, and they throw their opinions out from there.
Yeah, but I was just talking specifically about College Game Day, where all these guys do is only college football.
Well, okay. I mean, people just get it wrong, too. I mean, you remember Desmond Howard's infamous playoff picks from last year?
Yeah, Pitt in the playoff. I mean, everyone knew that was wrong immediately from the preseason, too. Like, I don't know how whatever.
I mean, and listen, yeah. I'm not gonna knock somebody for getting a feeling about a team, because, I mean, I made no bones about it this offseason, and even even a couple of days before the game, I said, listen, all this talk about Duke and Clemson is just that, a whole bunch of talk. I was like, Clemson's going to go out there and run Duke off the field.
Yep. I said the same thing.
So,
I was kind of saying, like, Duke has a shot, but Clemson should dominate this game. So, yeah. But let's see if there's anything else we need to touch up on with this. We went over.
Yeah, I got to give the defense credit too, because they didn't, even after Cam got hurt. Obviously, it end of the game, prevent defenses, their minds other places. They gave up, they bent, but they didn't break.
Yeah.
And I've absolutely got to give them credit for that. Now, I noticed somebody put in the chat earlier that Cristobal said that in his post-game press conference that Cam is okay. And I actually, I was sitting there watching that play because we're at a friend of mine's house for his son's 6th birthday, and I was sitting there watching the game on my phone. And I told her, I was like, as bad as it looks, I said his arms are moving. I said, and he kind of rolled from one side to the other. I said, it may just be a stinger, and that may just turn out to what it is, just a stinger.
I mean, yeah, you hope no one wants to say this, but like, hopefully it's just a concussion. And that's what it looked like. And especially if you see how the team was not only acting after the game, but how they were acting in like the pressers, where James Williams was like, he's fine. And Mario Cristobal was like, everything I'm hearing is he's okay. So I say, honestly,
I mean, he was awake and coherent and talking to everybody.
Yeah.
Even the sideline reporter acknowledged that during the game. I haven't watched any of the post-game press conferences yet.
No, I didn't see any, but I'm just like going off like Twitter notifications.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like most likely it's probably going to be like a concussion, and he misses the Bethune-Cookman game, which, oh no, how are we ever going to beat Bethune-Cookman without a Cam Kitchens? What will we do?
Now, Mark brings up a good point. Is this the biggest win since that 2017 Notre Dame game we brought up earlier?
Well, you have to look at 2018, got blown out by LSU, the comeback against Florida State, but they were mediocre that year. 2019 was a disaster. 2020 lost every big game we played. 2021, no. Yeah, I'd say this is the biggest win since that Notre Dame game. And another thing is, everyone wanted to make the stadium jokes and Hard Rock isn't a true home field advantage and this and that. And, I was there. Stadium was not packed. The announced attendance was 48,000. So it was 17,000 short of a sellout. But that place was still loud. That place was loud and it was rocking. And if you don't believe me, Texas A&M had to take 2 timeouts because they could not get their calls on the field because it was so loud.
And that just shows, imagine what that place can be if it's packed out on a regular basis. I got into a conversation with somebody about this earlier this week. And listen, I'm old enough to remember when Miami regularly sold out games and then when they stopped. Miami hasn't been regularly selling out games since the 90s. And unless something drastic happens, I don't see it changing. I remember looking at the prices earlier this week, and they're still wanting $120 plus for nosebleeds until Thursday. Then Thursday come around, they still had a bunch left, and they cut them in half.
Uh-oh.
But that's not a problem that I see a solution to. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fan base has shown that if the team is good and it's a big game, they'll show up. And they'll even somewhat show up for the smaller games because after we beat Notre Dame in 2017, that Virginia game, the place was loud. It was rocking. It wasn't sold out, but, there was maybe like 55,000 people there. I think that's about as close as we're going to get. We're not going to be in Nebraska where it's this 10-year sellout streak, and
and I tell people this all the time. This isn't Lincoln, Nebraska. This isn't Norman, Oklahoma. This isn't Tuscaloosa, Alabama. There's a whole lot more competition for your entertainment dollar in the city of Miami than there is in those places. It just is what it is.
And now when the Dolphins start playing, there are going to be some people that have to make a decision. Do I want to go to the Canes game or do I want to go to the Dolphins game? And then when basketball starts up again too, because a lot of people can't have the money to spend on like 3 professional sports games a week when tickets are like $100 each minimum. And that's just tickets. That's not even parking, food. If you want to get a beer. I mean, Jesus, I got chicken tenders and a beer and it was $32. Yeah. For like 5 chicken tenders and a basket of fries and then like a beer this tall.
Now this is something else that came up in a conversation earlier this week. This isn't just a Miami thing. Like, Florida State was doing 3-game packs for $37 and some change. So they're basically having to give away tickets too.
Yeah, I mean.
And it's just Miami wasn't coming that low on their tickets. So if you're not coming that low, it is what it is.
Tim says this, and my rebuttal to that is sort of, yeah, we have 20 times the population, but a lot of these people are immigrants. I work with a lot of immigrants that know absolutely nothing about the game of football and know nothing about the University of Miami's football program.
And now you have a larger, everybody knows the population of Florida's exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, exactly. The population of Florida's exploded. They're not from Florida. They're not fans of teams from Florida.
Yeah, I mean, the guy sitting next to me was a Texas A&M fan, which also shout out to the A&M fans. They were probably some of the nicest people I've met going to sports games. So just a quick one. But yeah, I was sitting next to this A&M fan, and I was like, "Oh, are you from Texas?" And he's like, "No, I'm from Palm Beach County. I just went to A&M and I moved back."
Yeah.
So that situation's different where it's like he's an alumni, but a lot of these people, it's that they moved from up north or they're retirees, or even like Florida State has a big fan base in Miami. And it's like, why? Because a lot of kids grow up in Miami. They go to Tallahassee for 4 years, go to school there, and then just move back down.
Yep.
It's not It's not the same thing where it's like you have a bunch of white kids from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and they grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and they still live in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and they're going to the Crimson Tide games every Saturday. It's not really that sort of same thing, especially when you have a private university with only 11,000 students that cost like $40,000 a semester. But everyone's already heard all that.
I mean, listen. At the end of the day, it'll be what it'll be. Whether there's people there or not, good win tonight. The team does still have some improvements to make.
Absolutely.
And part of that's going to be keeping people healthy. So hopefully, I don't expect to see Cam in the Bethune-Cookman game. Even if he is cleared, there's no need for him there.
It's Bethune-Cookman. Like, we should beat them by 70 with our backups. Like, come on.
I mean, listen, we dropped 50 plus on, I think it was Bethune last year that we played.
Dropped 70.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
that was last year.
Which, going back to the coordinators, like probably next week when we play Bethune, we're just going to be running the ball the whole game because TVD is not going to throw for 300 yards. I'd honestly be surprised if he even throws for like 250, 220.
I don't want to see him outside the first quarter. I want to see the other 2 quarterbacks play most of the game.
Yeah.
And I'm already, and you brought it up, I'm already starting to see some of these comments in the comment section of this video already. Texas A&M may not be that good of a team, but they, at the end of the day, are vastly more talented than we are.
Not only that, but when you look at it from like a PR point of view, it's a big game. Like in the moment, in the now, it's a big game. Maybe come January, we look at it, Texas A&M goes 7-5, 5-7 again, and it's not as big of a win as we thought. But still, in the moment, with how it was hyped up and people's perception.
This was the second biggest game of this week. Point blank period. So
behind
at
Texas,
the end
Alabama.
of the day, it's going to be a big win on the year when it's looked back on a year or two from now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we beat Ohio State in 2011, and I think that was the year that Jim Tressel or something was suspended and Luke Fickell was the coach. And maybe at the end of the year, that Ohio State team, they went like 7-5 or something. It wasn't as big of a win near the end of the year, but it was still a big win in the moment to beat Ohio State.
Sure. And there are some teams in Miami, in my opinion, still falls into this category. But, of course, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, those are still names when you beat them. Despite what their record is, that's still a big name that you beat.
Why do you think North Carolina always likes when they beat us and they have so much fun with it and they're always throwing the U down and all that stuff? It's because we're a name. We're a brand. And we haven't been good for 20 years. Like, listen, if Clemson comes into the game against us with 2 losses and we beat them, I'm still going to call it a big win. Because when is the last time we beat Clemson? Like, 2010?
Something like that. I know we've lost, the last 5 by at least 3 touchdowns.
And you also, look at the schedule now, and it's also a big win because, all right, let's look at who next. Ready? Bethune-Cookman, win. Georgia Tech, should be a win. Vastly more talented than them, playing them at home. There's no reason that we should lose that game. North Carolina on the road. They just went to overtime against App State. Did that game end? What was the score of that game? Let me see.
I saw somebody put in the comment section, App State took them down to the wire.
Oh, they beat them. No, never mind. I'm sorry. North Carolina 40. I thought it was 34-30. But no, North Carolina won 40-34 against App State. In North Carolina.
Down to the wire again.
We should beat North Carolina. That secondary is terrible. That defensive line is overrated.
So, and I was fixing. Somebody beat me to it. You missed Temple in there too. That'll be another easy win.
Oh, Temple. There's no reason we shouldn't be 6-0. And then we play Clemson at home, which we've already seen they're not invincible. They're not this world wrecker anymore. There's a really clear path. Well, it's not clear, but there's a realistic path to this team being 6-0, 7-0.
I'm going to make my determination on Clemson in 2 weeks after they play Florida State. Yeah, they have this week, and they have another basically tune-up game to kind of right the ship and get the cogs back in line and everything working properly.
Yeah,
I'll make my determination on them after Florida State.
I'm not writing them off. Like you heard me, I didn't call it an automatic win against Clemson.
Right.
But it's much more realistic now. And it's much more realistic to look at this schedule and say, hey, we could be 7-0.
Could be.
Like, I'm not predicting it. For all I know, we could lose to Georgia Tech. For all I know, we lose again in the wire against North Carolina.
Sure. I mean, like I said, this team is still, in my opinion, still has growing pains to go through.
Yeah.
Like every team that climbs back up from whatever slump they're in. To me, what a win like this does, and I think if you couple that with as bad as I think Florida's going to be this year, I think Mario's going to end up going to stack another top 5 class. Shout out to Cam, because I know he's been. I've been listening to Cam, and listen, people with far more patience follow recruiting closely like that. I just don't have the patience for it. Trying to figure out what a 17 or 18-year-old is going to do. I no, but I know you win football games, recruits come.
Yep.
It just is what that's the way it works, especially at Miami, and
especially with a coach like Mario.
Yeah, and if they can continue on this trajectory, okay, we have a couple of slip-ups. Say we lose to Clemson and Florida State. Okay, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and it's already kind of started a little bit where you had Jeremiah Smith, 5-star wide receiver, committed to Ohio State. Everyone's saying he's going to be a 3-and-done guy. He's the next Ohio State great. He said it. He's like, I still want to see how Miami's offense looks. I want to see how the Canes play. Ellis Robinson, cornerback, committed to Georgia. He said, I'll be cheering on the Canes this weekend. I want to see them win. I want to see them show up. I want Miami to be good.
Yeah.
Those are 2 5-stars. Already committed. These guys aren't, still mulling over their options. They're verbally committed to major schools, Georgia and Ohio State, 2 teams in the college football playoff, and they're still talking about Miami. We're still on their minds after a 5-7 season.
Yeah. And like I said, regardless of how Texas A&M season goes, the spotlight couldn't have been any bigger on them unless they were playing the primetime night slot. So, like I said, they were the second biggest game of the week, and they just showed game. That they showed out with the opportunity that they were given.
Yeah, I mean, we basically said, "Hey, Texas A&M, here's 14 points. We're still going to kick your ass."
Yeah, and that's why I say this team does still have work to do. It seems like 2 years in a row now, it's almost either X is back there catching punts or it's going to get fumbled.
Yeah, I mean, I said it during the game, bro. I was like, you got to be kidding me. 2 years in a row muffing a punt against these guys.
Even Tyreek Stevenson muffed the punt last year, as reliable as he was.
Yeah. I mean, it just...
special teams is something that needs to be, well, at least that phase of special teams. I mean, obviously kicking seems to have been fine with the second Borregales.
Yeah, I mean, he missed a 54-yarder, but Jesus Christ, it's a 54-yarder, and he missed it by like an inch, man. Like,
right.
I'm not going to harp on him for that.
Yeah, I'm not taking your lunch money over missing anything over 50, to be perfectly honest with you.
And he made a 50-yarder, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, the next kick, he went up there the next kick after he just missed one from 54 and still drilled one down the middle from 50, Now,
here's a question. Does this, with it really just being punt returns, because even our punt game seems to be fine.
Joyce, the new punter.
Yeah. Does this make you lean towards the fact that maybe we need we need a dedicated special teams coach? Because I know we don't. I know like 3 or 4 coaches share the responsibility.
Wait, hold up. Mohammed Hussein, that was the worst officiating job. I mean, yeah, there was some bad calls, but I don't think it was like the worst officiated game I've ever seen. But
I'm going to quote Jimmy Johnson. Don't leave it in the refs' hands.
Mm-hmm. And we didn't.
And you don't have to worry about the refs.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're absolutely right. They didn't. So at the end of the day, okay. Because listen, bad blown calls are built into every football game that has ever been played and ever will be played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the way it goes. So
yeah, and
if you make it to where it's not going to affect the outcome of the game, then okay, I can deal with your mistakes. I can deal with your mistakes even when it does affect it, because don't leave it in their hands.
I mean, yeah, like they not only got favorable calls a lot of the time, but like Muhammad said earlier, we spotted them 14 points. And we still won by 2 touchdowns.
Now listen, that kind of stuff does not happen every game, so let's not make a habit of doing that.
No. I'm not saying go out there and get – how many penalties do we have? Let me see.
Last time I looked at it, it was 6 for 60, and that was still in the first half, and I was like, oh, Lord.
Penalty. Where the hell is this? Full team stats. Yeah, I know we had like over 100 yards worth of penalties, something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, that has got to be cleaned up.
10 penalties for 115 yards. We gave them a full football field worth of penalties. And then some. And they had 7 for 55.
That's got to be cleaned up.
They did let a lot of holds go on A&M. That's true. There was a lot of times in that stadium. But
holding specifically is one. Okay, I get it. You see it. Why doesn't it get called? You can throw a flag for holding on literally every play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You can. Whether it's somebody in the secondary, whether it's a wide receiver, whether it's especially along the line. You can literally throw a holding penalty every game. My general rule of thumb with those is if it doesn't affect the outcome, if it doesn't affect the play, like if it's a run play to the left and a wide receiver on the corner on the right is holding, let it go. It doesn't affect the play.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, y'all.
Yeah, going back to the special teams, one thing I do want to see is kind of getting Restrepo off the kickoff returns, because then when he fields them, he's not as fast. I would like to see Tyler Harrell out there because, you know, he's the Louisville he was the Louisville receiver that transferred to Alabama and then came to us, and he runs like what, a 4.3, sometimes 4.2 40.
Yeah, I was about to say, was he the one that supposedly runs a 4.2 or 4.3? Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know why he's not on those kick returns, but you know, Brashard Smith still housed one.
Yes, Brashard Smith still housed one. But I you know, like I said, it's just it seems like it keeps happening. Restrepo's the only one with some sure hands.
No, I'm okay with Restrepo on the punt. I'm saying on kickoff.
Oh, on kickoff returns, okay.
Yeah, on kickoff have Brashard and Tyler out there, but Restrepo's fine on punts because if he doesn't fair catch it, he can still get you like 10 yards on the return.
Right.
You know, like you don't need to house a punt.
My point is that needs to be, in my opinion, a point of emphasis this week in practice.
Yes.
Is fielding punts.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have these cost us the game? I mean,
and actually over the next couple of weeks, because, you know, against Bethune-Cookman and then against Temple, you're not going to have you're not going to be punting the ball a whole lot, and you're going to be catching a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, if the game goes the way it should. So, it in my opinion, needs to be a point of emphasis over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and, you know, like I was about to say, how many times has these muff punts cost us games? I can think of two right now. One, A&M last year, where Tyreek's muff punt completely flipped the momentum of the game and gave Texas A&M short field position. We lose by 8. They scored a touchdown off of it. Against Florida, Jeff Thomas muffs a punt. They win by 4. They scored a touchdown off that muff punt. So it seems like a little thing, but when it actually happens, it's a huge deal because now they're getting the ball inside the 20 most of the time.
Yeah, well, listen, I agree with your point that stuff can flip the momentum of a game, but I mean, if you go back over the course of a game, there's probably another 15, 20 plays you can look at. Oh, if we hadn't have done this here. Oh, if we hadn't done that there. And then the comment, I was just fixing to get to it, that you highlighted. Guess what else can do you a whole lot of good? Getting off the field on third down.
Mm-hmm.
And
there was a few too many pass interferences and holdings on third down.
Yeah, and I'm still not seeing, in my opinion, enough disciplined play out of James Williams. He needs to rein it in just a little bit.
He looked better today.
Well, he did, but he still reminded me a bit of Bubba Bolden running all over the field trying to do too much.
Mm-hmm.
Calm it down. Stick to your assignment. I can't even believe that penalty was thrown for targeting. That was clearly and obviously not targeting.
Oh yeah, I mean,
now unless they were just going to say it was a defenseless player.
I mean, that sort of seemed to be like the argument that I was thinking. Like, are they thinking this is a defenseless receiver? But even then, it's not like he almost completed the catch fully. Like, what are we gonna? We have to let him catch it now?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was fixing to go with it. I mean, if you're going to make the defenseless receiver argument there, I mean, are we supposed to let him make the catch, come back down on the ground, and stand there with our thumb up our butts until he does that and hope we get the tackle at that point?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. The right call was eventually made, and they reviewed it. I mean, I can side with the refs a little bit on that, where it's like it happened so fast, it looks like it could be targeting. So let me just throw the flag, and I know that they're going to review this anyways. And if it's not targeting, fine. If it is, at least I threw the flag and I didn't let one get away.
And I think that's what they do with some of it, trying to be overly cautious.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least a good thing with the targeting. That it is reviewable. It's not just up in the hands of the officials on the field like so many other penalties. So at least they're that. Like when they throw that one, like at least it goes back for review. And the idea was the hit to the head.
That's what I was saying. Like to me, at least now granted, I'm trying to watch the game on a smaller screen on phone, but I mean, he clearly didn't make contact with his head until the incidental contact that happens.
Yeah.
And I'm not even trying to say James Williams playing bad. I'm just saying it
no, I think he had a good game.
Yeah.
I think he was actually like our leading tackler. Let me see.
Wouldn't surprise me. That still doesn't mean that you can't.
He had 9 total tackles. He was our leading tackler.
So, I mean, it still doesn't mean you can't improve things. It's just something I've noticed that I think needs to be improved. That's all. Mm-hmm. I think no matter what, I think if you beat somebody 100-0 in the national title game, you should still be looking for things to improve.
And that's what makes like the good teams great, honestly, because like even when like you don't get complacent about things, and even when you dominate, like even last week we were coming out here and saying like, oh, this could be worked on, but it's at least nice to see that we've improved from where we were like 2 years ago with Manny, and even sort of last year with a lot of these missed tackles, not wrapping up and letting them go for like these sort of big plays.
Yes. I
really can't recall too many missed tackles today. And you're never going to completely eliminate that because it's just part of the game.
Oh, sure. But guys make moves. I mean, we saw some of our own receivers shed tacklers. So it happens.
Yeah, but at least it's gotten a lot better to the point where one play comes to mind. Francisco Mauigoa, they get it on a little like pass out to the flat to Amari Daniels, the Texas A&M running back. And he sort of puts a move and he kind of shakes Francisco. And I thought, oh, he missed the tackle, but he's still able to get a hold of that ankle and knock him down. Now, he didn't get the tackle for loss or even the tackle at the line of scrimmage, but at least he limited the play, which if this was 2 years ago or last year, that dude gains like 15 yards. And it only ended up being like a 3-4 yard gain.
Right.
So yeah, I don't really have anything else to add for tonight. I think we pretty much covered everything.
Yeah. Like I said, just improvement over the next couple of weeks and then get into your ACC schedule. I mean, I guess it's just the last 15 or so years built up in me, but you know, you've got to show me that you can consistently beat the Georgia Techs that you should beat. You got to show me that you can consistently beat the North Carolinas that you should. Hell, North Carolina's beat us, 6 of the last 8?
19, 20, 21, 22. They won 4 in a row.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they've won 6 of the last 8. So, I mean, let's not act like, even after this win, let's not act like there's a whole bunch of just guaranteed wins on the slate ahead of us. I think they need to go into every game this season with this same mentality.
No, and that's sort of what I was saying earlier. Like, there is a road to 6-0, 7-0, and this team could definitely do it based on what we saw tonight. But nothing is guaranteed in college football. I mean,
no. I mean, like we said earlier, how many people honestly would say it now that they picked Duke to beat Clemson? I'll straight up admit I didn't.
Nope. Yeah, I mean, like, this was a big win tonight, and it felt good driving home from the stadium after this. It felt good walking out of the stadium after this game and being there. But there's still plenty of work to do. We're not at the level that we need to be yet or want to be yet. We want to be competing for eventually national championships and conference titles and all that sort of stuff. And that's not this year, but it's good to see visible progress where we not only were able to beat a very talented SEC team, but we got down early and the leaders on this team rallied together and said, it's still the first quarter. It's still a ball game. Don't get down about it. And still won by 2 touchdowns.
And to your point, because I know there's a lot of fans of SEC teams, and they never let anybody forget how dominant the SEC is. Unless I'm much mistaken, that makes the SEC now 1-5 against the ACC this season so far.
Who did they? Oh,
Tennessee beat Virginia.
How are we even going to count that?
It was 1-3 before this week, and now Miami beat A&M, and Wake Forest beat Vandy.
Yeah, and I think Texas is about to beat Bama, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, Bama's up. But it's the end of the third. So, hey, Texas still has a shot.
That's a game. That's been a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, my God. Texas Tech is up 27-18 on Oregon with 6:16 left in the third.
You're
I bet you miss Mario. I am dead serious. 27-18 right now.
And I've been trying to figure out all week. I was like, what am I missing here? Because I looked at that line from Oregon and Texas Tech, and I'm like, why is it only 6 points?
Well, it's sort of the same thing as last year with Texas A&M. When they lost to App State, a lot of people in our fan base just assumed, oh, they lost to App State, we should beat them. It's like, well, this is still a Division I football team that has some talent on it. And they got their pride hurt. They're in wounded dog mode. They're going to be more desperate than ever. If anything, you should have wanted them to beat Wyoming or App State. You get me? Now their back's against the wall. Now they're really going to come out fighting and scratching, which we saw from Texas A&M last year, and it looks like Texas Tech is doing this year.
I tell you what, though, and I'd hate to see it because I don't want to see anybody lose their job. If Texas A&M can't get it together this season, that may be the end of Jimbo Fisher's career. They will, if they fall apart this year and win 7 games, they'll fire Jimbo this year. And who's really going to hire him again at this point?
Shit, who's going to pay that $70 million to buy him out?
Hey, they'll just go out there and dig another hole in Texas. That's where they'll get $70 million to buy him out. I mean, that's not going to stand. That's not going to stand. I mean, for as much as people want to say, Miami's been bad and down, Texas A&M doesn't have a 10-win regular season this century.
No, the Johnny Manziel year, and then the COVID year. I don't know if you want to count that.
They did not win 10 regular season games. They haven't.
Oh, you're saying just games. Regular season?
They have not won 10. They have not won 10 games in the regular season since 1999.
No, they went 10-2. They finished 11-2 overall. No, they went 10-2.
What year?
2012. Johnny Manziel when he won the Heisman. Their only losses were to LSU, 24-19, and then to Florida, week 1.
I thought their 10th win came on the bowl game.
No, that was their 11th win against Oklahoma. I'm looking at it right now. And then the COVID year.
COVID year, they only played 10 games during the regular season.
Yeah, so if you're talking. No, and even then with the bowl game, 9-1.
Yeah. I mean, that was that. Everybody played. There there was a whole bunch of teams didn't even play 10 games that year. So, I mean, I really wasn't even going to get on them for that.
No, yeah, I mean, it's Jimbo's best year, the COVID year.
Yeah.
But, you know, Texas A&M fans said it to me on the way out. There's one guarantee in life. It's Texas A&M going 8-4, which honestly they might.
I mean,
that's the joke.
That may save Jimbo. Listen, that may save him because I mean, when was the last time that on a regular basis they've even gone 8-4?
I mean, really, let's look at their schedule real quick. They've got after this UL Monroe. They should win. At home against Auburn, they should win. They should beat Arkansas at home. Then they get Alabama at home, which, you know, it's the SEC. Anything could happen. But let's say Alabama wins that one. Now they're at 2 losses. At Tennessee, I think they lose that one. At home against South Carolina, I think they win that one. At Ole Miss could be tricky.
Wait a minute. Tennessee was losing at halftime to Austin Peay. Let's not just chalk that up as
hold on. I did not know that about Tennessee. Never mind. No way. They're losing to Austin Peay. Oh my God, they only beat them 30-13.
Yeah.
Never mind. No, they could win that game.
Overthrow Joe is back in full effect.
Okay,
Joe
so
Milton is what people thought, and I've always said Joe Milton is.
Yeah, this schedule could easily be anywhere from 7-5 if things go to shit, and then 8-4. Because there's Alabama at Tennessee, at Ole Miss, Mississippi State at home, which they could be like a tricky little team, and then at LSU.
Now listen, I'm not saying that Texas A&M can't get their season back on the rails. I'm not saying that at all, because listen, and I'm not trying to detract from Miami's win at all, but we see it multiple times every year where less talented teams beat more talented teams. And like you said, it's. I mean,
they are more talented than us.
Oh yeah, that's like
if you look at it from a pure stars to stars, they're way more talented than us.
Yeah, they're somewhere around 3 or 4 in the nation. We're somewhere around 11 or 12 in the nation, going by talent on the roster.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I look at that schedule, and they could realistically finish 8-4. Hell, they could finish 9-3. They could lose to Alabama and Tennessee, and then just beat all these other teams, or Alabama and LSU, and then beat Tennessee, beat South Carolina, beat Ole Miss, beat Mississippi State. So like, to all the Aggie fans out there, like, this isn't like just an over with season just because you lost to Miami in week 2. Like, don't be ridiculous out here.
Now that applies for us too. And like I said, this may be the last 15 years conditioned into me, but I've seen Miami is a prime example, should be to all of us, of teams that are more talented, more talented losing to teams with less talent.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it before. FIU, Middle Tennessee, Georgia Tech, North Carolina at times, they've been North Carolina's always been way less talented than us, and they still find a way to beat us.
Miami has consistently, I'm not sure, North Carolina's the only one that may have come close, and it's probably only been in a single year here or there, once or twice. Miami has always been the most talented team in the Coast.
Yep.
And it is what it is. So that's why I say, if people, I'm not trying to take away from a win at all, but I'm going to continue to look for things for them to improve.
No, yeah, absolutely. As should the coaches, and I expect them to. Like,
and I think Mario will, because that's Mario's mentality.
Yeah, I mean, Mario comes from that era of Dennis Erickson and the Canes, where it was just pure domination and pushing yourself in practice and making practice harder than the games.
Well, I wouldn't even.
And even learning under Nick Saban.
I'm about to say that was if you go back to when he was the head coach at FIU, when he was on the staff at Alabama, when he was on the staff at Oregon, and then when he was head coach at Oregon, consistently, yes, we did these things great, but we still need to improve this, this, and this.
Tim said, any concern with how little we use the tight end? Worried about Skinner / Arroyo. Well, Arroyo didn't even play today, so there's that.
And I think,
and Skinner, Mario has made it clear that he needs to just bulk up. He's not ready from a physicality standpoint to be out there just yet, which is another thing about Mario. He's brutally honest with you. Like he said it through the media, and he's said it to Skinner's face. I haven't been in the room for those conversations, but I guarantee you, he's like, physically, you are not ready to be out there in these big time games yet because you don't have the size yet. So, yeah.
And Arroyo's he was questionable. They were hoping he was going to play. I remember him saying that, but it wasn't a guarantee. So,
and he didn't.
Okay, you were hoping he would get into this one. He's got a couple of cupcakes coming up to get into the groove of things if he's ready to go. And I think that's just what that is, in my opinion. Arroyo just wasn't ready to go.
Yeah, and even then, like, it's not like we really needed the tight ends today. Like, again, TVD took what the defense gave him.
Well, I think he didn't need them because they weren't there for him, but I'm more than happy to give him another option.
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, obviously, but like Cam McCormick was still there, and I think he had like a catch or two. Riley, oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? The freshman tight end. He played. Yes, Riley Williams. He played. I don't know if he had any catches, but he was still on the field. Yeah, Cam McCormick had one catch for 20 yards.
Yeah. Listen, over the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to see the entire roster play. And I think you absolutely should.
Yeah, Temple, Bethune-Cookman. And what's great is, we have the quick turnaround against Bethune-Cookman, but it's Bethune-Cookman. And then we get, 9 days of rest?
Yes, to go to Temple. And then we have a bye week before Georgia Tech. Like I was saying, we have a bye week before we go to Georgia Tech and then get into our ACC slate from there. And trying to think of it off the top of my head, I think it goes from Georgia Tech, and then I think it's Clemson at home.
Sorry about that, man. Fiance came in to remind me to take out the dog, and then she's going to go see her mom real quick. Girl stuff, but whatever. No, we have Georgia Tech and then North Carolina.
Okay, is it North Carolina? I couldn't remember if North Carolina was after or before Clemson.
Yeah, it goes Bethune-Cookman, Temple, North Carolina, Clemson, and then I think we have Virginia after that. So, which Virginia is basically going to be another cupcake game. Like, come on, let's be serious here.
Well, yes, but I'm actually going to agree with Tony Elliott. I think after what happened at Virginia last year, it is an accomplishment that the team took the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was pretty much everything we had to cover there.
I think it is.
Yeah.
So everybody enjoy the big win. The internet's going to be fun this week.
Yeah. Should be fun going back with some. I'm already doing it with some Florida State friends. Texas A&M isn't that good. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I could say the same thing about LSU, bro. It's only week 2. We live in fairy tale world right now. Reality is whatever I make it.
And listen, as much fun as I like to have with Florida State fans on the internet and a serious football conversation, and I've been on the internet for 6-7 years doing this. Florida State is a pick 'em to me every year. I don't care who's up, who's down, who's good, who's bad. It's a pick 'em.
I mean, I've brought the example up before. Brad Kaya, 2014, a 6-7 Miami team takes Jameis Winston and a college football playoff team to the brink.
Yep.
It just is what it is.
That's why it's one of the best rivalries in all of college football because it stays that way. You know, this isn't a Georgia Tech or a Clemson South Carolina where a team's got a 40-game lead on the other. These rivalries in Florida, in the state of Florida, are just better because they're all that close.
I mean, the all-time series, we lead it. I know that, but by 3 games.
Yeah, we lead by 3 games. We lead the series with Florida by 2 games, and if I'm not mistaken, Florida has like a 6-game lead on Florida State. Yeah,
let me look that up right now. Versus Florida State, they have a 10-win lead actually.
Oh, is it 10? That's
yeah, 37 wins to 27, and then 2 ties.
Okay.
But yet, even then, the longest win streak in this rivalry is 9 games in Florida's favor. But that was in the 60s and 70s. So,
yeah,
like whatever. But yeah. Thank you to every. What? What's up?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, okay. No, it's just that you cut out a little bit, so I don't know if you want to add something else.
No, you're good. Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you to everyone that tuned in tonight. Just remember, enjoy the win, enjoy this season, enjoy the fact that we're taking a step in the right direction, and most importantly, go Canes.
Yes, sir.
That's it. Good night, everyone.